Hello, it's Steve here again from the Studio One Soapbox. In today's video, I want to start off a short, small series on offering ideas in the mix. What I want to do is not so much concentrate on what EQ to use or what compressor to use or the settings you should use, because that is so subjective and specific to the material you're working on, even how that material was recorded or what was used even in the recording, so on and so forth. So many variables, it's impossible to say use this setting, use this compressor for certain things. Just impossible. So rather than do that, which has been done to death by others, probably far better than what I could, I'd rather offer an overall philosophical look with some practical hints and tips as we go along the way. So in this first part, what I'm going to deal with is you've just been sent the stems by a client and they're now asking you to turn this into a hit song, to make it a mix of their dreams. So we're going to deal with two parts here in the one, sorting and gainstaging. So as you can see here, over on the right hand side, I've went to our files tab in the browser, and here are the stems that I've been sent. As you can see, kick, drums seem to be at the start, bass, loads of electric guitars, a few synths, lead vocals, backing vocals, and finally remix, which I would imagine being an MP3 is the finished or possibly a scratch track of how they want the song to sound and the vibe they were trying to go for to give me an idea of what it is they're looking from me. So what's the first thing you would do then? You're looking at this, you're going, whoa, where do I start? Well, best place to start is with the notes that came with these stems. I know the BPM, beats per minute, off this track that they recorded it at was 137 beats per minute. So first thing to do, let's set our tempo. 137. Boom. Right, that's that done. So we know we're at the right tempo for this song. The next thing I'll be looking for is if there's any stereo files, especially amongst the drums. I would prefer to have the left and right split to mono files. So I can see here that there is overheads, and I would imagine that that is indeed a stereo file. So I prefer to work with two monos, just in case there may be any phase issues. Maybe the mic on one side of the overheads is slightly further away from the snare, or some other issues may have crept in. That way I can check it. So in Studio One, as we know, to split a stereo file to mono, we simply right click, we come down to split to mono files. Let's click that, give it a little second to do it, and there we go. We have overheads left and overheads right. So everything else seems to be pretty much in order. So what I'm going to do now is drag our stems across into our edit window. So if we click on the kick and we scroll down to the bottom to the last backing vocal, hold down shift, that's selected all our files. Now I don't want the stereo overheads as well since I've already split them. So if I hold down the control button, click on overheads. I do apologize to our Mac user friends. I really should learn what the keys are on a Mac and add them in for your convenience. I will do that in future. I do apologize. So now we have all our tracks, our stems I should say, highlighted. Let's drag them into our project. We simply drag them over to the start and let go. And what will happen now is Studio One will have a little analysis of these things, and as you can see it says building preview. We'll just let it do its thing. This may take a little while, and if it does, I might cut this out of the video and we'll come back at a quicker stage than what it did in real time. So just bear with me. So as you can see, it's finished doing its preview, and if I just come up here and do a little overview, good, there's all our tracks. Now, next up from this stage, you would basically want to start sorting out your tracks. Now, in most cases, a lot of us prefer to have our drums first, as they are here. Normally, our bass, electric guitars, synths, lead vocals, backing vocals. That's normally how most people like to work. Now, sometimes you may have tracks that are all over the place. I've seen that a couple of times, and it is a bit of a nuisance. But say the drums here, if I drag them down, we're at the bottom of the project and we want them at the top. If I just click on a guitar track, so what we would do, click the first track, hold down Shift key, click the last track, that's all our drums highlighted, and simply drag them up to the top of our project. Boom. That's that done. And so that's the way you would just drag these around. As I've said before, what I would prefer is the track list here. As you can see, they're all highlighted in the track list. But if I want to highlight those tracks, because we've only 34 tracks here, but you can be sent 100 stem tracks more sometimes. It's absolutely crazy because people won't want to commit to a particular sound. And so it's a bit difficult sorting these things out. So if I could highlight all my drums in the track list, which simply you can't, as I've said before, there's no way of highlighting this, drag those to the bottom, or if the drums were in the middle here, highlighting those, dragging them to the top. So if Presonus would add that nice feature into the track list that you can click and drag and highlight tracks, would be most excellent. So let's get rid of that, since it's not much use to us. Get rid of that too. As I had said, they seem to have added a scratch track. So let's bring that into our project as well. Just does a little converting for us. MP3 to WAV file, I would imagine. And Presonus did say that version 3.3 comes with something that helps do this a little quicker. We shall see. This is a very low spec system, as I've said many times before. So let's see how long this takes. Bit too long, I think. I'll cut this and come back. And we're back. Finally, it has converted the remix there. So next up, what I want to do is colorize my tracks. Just it makes things easier to find within the mix. As you can see, all sorts of various colors here. How on earth would you ever find your way through this if you had loads and loads and loads of tracks here? So I have a specific system that I like to colorize in. You will have your own, and choosing the color is insignificant, just so that you know personally what track is which. So I like to do my drums in purple. There we go. We have 2 bass tracks. I like those in a sort of orange color. Electric guitars, loads and loads of electric guitars, and we'll sift through those. Let's colorize them a nice blue. Synths are alright in green. Lead vocal I like in a yellow so that it stands out more. Backing vocals I like in a similar yellow just so that I know it's vocals. Oh, sorry, should have highlighted all those. Easily done. Yeah, that'll do. And the remix itself, well, it doesn't really matter about that colour, but we'll go for white. So that's our tracks all colorized. So at least now, if I see a purple track, I know it's something to do with drums. I see an orange, sort of brown track, I know it's bass. Blue, guitars. Green, it's something to do with synths. Yellow is the lead vocal, and a creamy yellow is backing vocals, so on and so forth. Just choose the colours that suit you and keep using them all the time. Try not to deviate from them, because as you start going through more mixes, you'll start to get into the way of it, and you'll just be looking at the colours. You won't even have to go, is that a drum track or is it a guitar? What is it I'm looking at? Especially in the console view. So let's have a look at the console view. Let's stretch that up a bit. Get rid of the browser. And as you can see, there's a load of tracks there to scroll through. There's our drums. So what I like to do next is create buses for these. Very handy for mixing, and you'll see another reason for doing it in a little second. So if we highlight all those tracks, I click on the first one, I hold down shift, click on the last track in the group, right click, and we have this nice feature, add bus for selected channels. Yes please. There we go. Let's highlight that in purple as well, and we'll call that drum bus. Next we have our two bass guitars. Let's create a little bus for those. A bus for selected channels. We'll go for that same sort of orange. We'll call that bass bus. Next up we have guitars. Loads and loads of guitars. Oh dear, this could be a challenge when it comes to mixing. I would imagine lots of those are just intros, maybe some solos, maybe some outros, and various parts in the mix. Right click again, a bus for selected channels, change that to a blue, call that guitar bus, and same with our synths. It does seem long, laborious. I mean, this is the boring part. Believe you me, if you don't lay good groundwork now, you'll get lost in the mix later, especially if there's loads and loads of tracks, because sometimes you'll be sent stems and there could be up to 100 tracks and you'll just get absolutely lost. So it's good practice to sort it all out now. Lead vocals on its own, believe that, but we'll get the back end vocals in their own little bus. Add bus for selected channels. Let's colour that in yellowish, and we'll call that BV bus. There we go. Now, since we've created buses, another great way to do this and to organize things is to use folders within Studio One. Now, if we come up here, highlight the kick, come down to the tom, being the last, tom 2 I should say, being the last drum track, and we right click and we come down to pack folder, and we call that drums. Now we can open and close that. There are all our drum tracks. Nice and easy, especially when you're stuck for real estate on your monitor or you're using a laptop or something like that. Being able to pack things into folders really does help with organizing things and getting your way around tracks. So we'll do the same for the bass. Pack those in a folder and call that bass guitar. Same with the guitars. Pack them in a folder. Elect guitar. Synths, same again. Pack those in our folder. It just helps in organizing stuff, and it's up to you. You don't have to do it this way. It's whatever works for you. And I'll just pack the backing vocals into a wee folder of their own. BVS's backing vocals. And as you can see, that changed its own color. Weird. So we'll change that to backing vocals, something a bit yellow. Little bug in the mix maybe, who knows. Just check those. Yep, all the same color. Lovely. And finally we have the remix, which looks like the finished 2-track song. It could be just a scratch track or it could be a finished mix that they've sent along. This is what we're looking for. This is what we're after. This is the vibe we're going for. And so it does well to listen to this track, study it, and get a good idea of where the band actually wants this song to go before you start any mixing whatsoever. So as you can see, we have pack things into folders, making things nice and neat, and we can know where everything is. Now, this is where things get a little strange. If we come into the console, all we have is buses. We're like, where is all our tracks gone? It's a very strange thing. People get confused with this. I did myself until I was watching some YouTube videos myself on the internet. But for the drums, if we come down to where it says none, and we choose drum bus, now we go back to our console, and you'll see there's a little folder now appeared on this bus track. If I click on that, there's all our tracks there. Interesting. Very strange, but that's how it works. I don't know why they don't just implement that what you have in your editor window mimics in your console window. I know there is some issues there. I've heard it explained before, but for me personally, for workflow purposes, this is a bit annoying. So I now have to go down bass to the bass bus, electric guitars to the guitar bus, synths to the synth, and lastly backing vocals to the backing bus. Now if I go back into our console, we do have all the little folders now showing up here as well. So if I go to the backing vocals, and there's are the individual tracks. But it does keep things nice and neat, as you can see. I mean, see if you're scrolling and scrolling. If I just want to work on drums, for instance, which is mostly where we start from, it's easy just to open that up and not have loads and loads of tracks there sort of getting in the road and distracting us from what we want to do. So that is all our sorting out. So what did I do there? Well, basically, I colorized my tracks. We drag them so that I want my drums, my bass, guitars, synths, lead vocals, backing vocals. That's the way I like to work. You might like to work in a different way. It's entirely up to yourself. There is no set way to do this. Secondly, as you can see, I colorized them so that I can memorize what tracks are without having to look. I know purple are drum tracks to me. Orange is sort of bass tracks to me, and blue is always guitars to myself. So whatever suits you, no problems there. That's that sorted out. Then I packed them in the folders, where you simply highlight your tracks, right click, pack to folder. And it helps keeps everything nice and neat. Then in the console view, to get these things to show up here, we actually have to tell it, click on the little arrow and tell it the output is the drum bus. It's kind of good in a way because, you know, I now have all the individual drum tracks, but I can control the volume of them all with the one fader, which is handy as you go along in a mix, especially if you have loads and loads of tracks. In this particular case, we only have about 37 tracks, I think it is. But in others, you can have up to 100 tracks. You know, bands don't always like to commit to a sound and will give you loads and loads of choices and ask you to try and pick things out and come up with something, you know. But to me, it's like being a painter and decorator. You're sent into a room to decorate it. You've been contracted to decorate this room. You go in, you say to the owner, okay, what colour would you like your walls, madam or sir? And they say to you, oh, I'm not quite sure. I've 10 tins of paint here, all different colours. Sure, you choose. Now, that's basically what you're doing when you send 100 tracks or mad amount of tracks to someone who mixes, asking them to choose. How do they know what colour it is you want on your wall? You know, you have to guess, and then this creates problems because they're not happy with this, they're not happy with that, and things start coming back. You know, so you do have to have guidelines. Maybe you allow them 2 callbacks, possibly 3. Depends on the relationship. If you build up a good rapport with someone, you're willing to go that extra mile. But there has to be a cut-off point where you say, look, that's the mix sorted. If you want anything more than that, then, you know, there has to be extra costs because you are working and you need to get paid. A workman is worth his hire, as we say. So that's all our sorting done. Next up, we have our gain staging. You know my favorite way of gain staging. I'm going to implement it now on the post fader. I'm going to implement the VUMT duo. I really do like this VU meter because it's so accurate. It's the most accurate one I've found, and I can say that wholeheartedly and truly is the case. So let's have a listen to the scratch track possibly, or maybe even a finished mix of what the band is going for, and whilst it's playing I'm going to set our gain staging. Here we go. I know what you're going to say, that is awful low from where we started out. But I like the mixes to start off hitting no higher than -6. Gives me a bit of headroom, and you need to give that headroom so that when you pass this on to the mastering engineer, he has still plenty of room to work in as well. There's lots of debates on what levels you should record at, so on and so forth. We'll get into that later on in a few different videos. But for me, I use -18, and that's where I want my tracks to be. So when we're listening back, we can hear this is a bit of a rock track, having our wee class. And obviously that is a finished mix, and they seem to be hitting at +6, which is just crazy. But anyway, I don't know what way that was recorded or mastered or anything like that. So next up, what we want to do in our mix is let's mute that, and let's highlight all our tracks. Just highlight all these buses, which means every track is highlighted. We'll play this back and we'll set our gain staging. When it hits at say a chorus or the loudest part of the mix, I want it just be touching on the 0. So let's play that. Somebody scream! As you can see over here, we've been clipping terribly. 42 times it's clipped. Let's play that. Okay, so we're sort of averaging out at 0 on the VU meter, and that's where we want to be. As you can see from here, we've had to bring all our tracks down -12.5 dB. So it shows how hot these tracks were originally recorded. Let me just check this again. Yep, that's about right. So that's us sorted. Firstly, we have our sorting out done. We dragged our tracks over, we colorized them, we put them into folders so they're easier to manage. We added buses so we can do the same thing in our console view. Our drums, there's all our guitars. And finally, we've done our gain staging, where we've had to bring all the tracks down, which was easy using all the buses, and drag them all down so that they're average and around 0 on the VU meter. As you can see, not too bad there at all. And that is it for part one. So that's us all sorted out. We have got all our tracks sorted. We've got them colorized. We put them in folders. We've added buses for each track so that we can do the same in our console view. There's our drums. Click in the little folder. There's all our guitars. And so we haven't done any mixing whatsoever, but we've set the base level, the foundation for a mix. And lastly, we set our gain staging using the Klangham VUMT meter, which is the most accurate one I can find. And we want to be averaging around 0. And all I did was highlight all the buses, all the channels, clicked on a fader and just dragged that down, which brings them all down. And as you can see, we've had to come down minus 12.5 dB to be averaging around 0 on the VU meter. And that is us finished for stage 1. Our sorting and our gain staging is set. We've set our foundation and we're now ready to go further in our mix. So you can tune in and catch me in the next video. Happy mixing and thank you for watching.